The emergency lights bathed the Galactic Council chamber in cold blue light. Ambassador Zakara of the Volution Combine stood at the central podium, her forearms trembling as she activated the holographic display. Around her, representatives from 47 species watched in silence. Council members, Zakara began, her voice barely steady. What I am about to show you occurred 6 hours ago at Kepler Station, a civilian trading hub in the neutral zone. The hologram flickered to life. Kepler Station hung in space like a massive wheel, lights twinkling from thousands of windows. Ships docked at its ports. On the hull, painted in bright colors, were the symbols of welcome in 30 different languages. Then the recording showed them coming. 15 warships, angular and dark, bearing the red markings of the Krell Dominion. They approached without warning signals, without the standard hailing protocols that every civilized species followed. The first missile struck the station's residential sector. The explosion tore through the structure like paper. Air and debris burst into space, and with them bodies. So many bodies. The Krell ships fired again and again. They targeted the docking bays, trapping the civilian vessels. They targeted the life support centers. They targeted the schools and the hospitals and the market districts. When Kepler Station finally broke apart, it died in silence because space swallows all screams. The hologram ended. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment. 50,000 souls, Zakara said quietly, mostly human colonists and merchants, some Volution traders, a few hundred from other species, all civilians, all dead. Ambassador Torvin of the Hexarian Unity was the first to speak. His translated voice carried the artificial calm of his species. This is deeply troubling. Have the Krell provided any explanation? They claim territorial violations, Zakara answered. They say Kepler Station was built too close to their claimed space. That's a lie, someone shouted. All eyes turned to the human section. Ambassador Elena Reeves stood slowly. She was tall for a human, with gray threading through her dark hair and eyes that looked like they had not slept in days. She probably had not. The news would have reached Earth at the same time it reached the Council. Kepler Station has been in that location for 12 years, Elena said, her voice controlled but hard. It was approved by this council. The nearest Krell territory is 40 light-years away. There was no violation. There was no warning. There was only murder. The word hung in the air. Murder. It was not a term the council used often. Incident, regrettable action, unfortunate escalation, these were the preferred words. Murder was too harsh, too primitive. Ambassador Reeves, Council Arbiter Melkos, spoke from his elevated seat. We understand your anger. The loss of human life is tragic, but we must approach this with level heads and seek a diplomatic solution. Elena said nothing. She simply watched the Arbiter with those tired, hard eyes. The Krell have already sent a delegation, Melkos continued. They are willing to negotiate. This is positive news. We can find a peaceful resolution. Negotiate? Elena's voice was soft, almost confused. Negotiate what exactly? Zakara activated another display. A message from the Krell Dominion appeared, written in the formal language of council diplomacy. They want 3 contested mining worlds in the Helios sector. In exchange, they guarantee no future incidents will occur. They are even willing to pay a small reparation to the families of those lost at Kepler Station. Around the chamber, several species nodded. This was how things were done. Conflict arose, species negotiated, compromises were reached. Peace was maintained. The system had worked for 800 cycles. The council will draft a response, Arbiter Melkos announced. We will negotiate the terms down, of course. Perhaps 2 worlds instead of 3. We will ensure the reparations are adequate. Justice will be served through the proper channels. Justice, Elena repeated. She looked around the chamber at all the different species, all the representatives who considered themselves the pinnacle of civilization. Then she did something unexpected. She laughed. It was not a happy sound. You think 3 mining worlds is justice for 50,000 lives? You think paying blood money to widows and orphans makes this right? Elena shook her head. No, I see now. You do not understand what happened here. Let me make it clear. She touched her data pad and suddenly every screen in the chamber displayed a single image. A human child, no more than 6 years old, smiling at the camera. Behind her was a colorful classroom filled with artwork. This is Maya Chen. She lived on Kepler Station. She wanted to be a botanist and grow food for colony ships. This is what she looked like before the Krell killed her. Elena swiped and another image appeared. an elderly couple holding hands. Robert and Susan Martinez, married 62 years, ran a small restaurant on the station. Dead, another swipe. A young man in medical robes, Dr. James Okonkwo, 28 years old. He left Earth to bring medicine to the frontier. Dead. She continued swiping, face after face, name after name. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Stop, Arbiter Melkos commanded. Ambassador Reeves, we understand your pain, but this display is not helpful. Not helpful? Elena looked at him. You want to negotiate with the people who murdered these civilians. You want to give them mining worlds as a reward for slaughter, and you think my memorial to the dead is what's unhelpful here. It was an unfortunate incident, Torvin said. But war between the Terran Coalition and the Krell Dominion would cost millions more lives. The practical choice is to negotiate. This is how civilization works. Elena stood very still for a moment. Then she gathered her datapad and turned to leave. Ambassador Reeves, Arbiter Melkos called out. Where are you going? We have not finished the session. Elena stopped at the chamber doors. She turned back to face the council one last time. Thank you for your time, Arbiter. Thank you all. The Terran Coalition will handle this matter independently from this point forward. We will not be participating in your negotiations with the Krell. Confused murmurs rippled through the chamber. Jakara stepped forward. Elena, what does that mean? What is your government planning? Elena met her friend's eyes. They had worked together for years, building bridges between their species. But something had changed in the human ambassador's expression. Something cold and final. It means exactly what I said. You may negotiate if you wish. You may give the Krell whatever worlds you think are appropriate payment for mass murder. But humanity will not be part of that bargain. We will pursue our own response. What response? Melkos demanded. Ambassador, you cannot take unilateral action. The Council must approve any military response. The Council, Elena said quietly, can approve whatever it likes. Earth is not asking for permission. She walked out. The massive doors closed behind her with a heavy thud that echoed through the silent chamber. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Arbiter Melkos turned to his assistant. Get me the Terran High Command immediately. We need to explain to them the grave mistake they are making. But deep in the Council archives, a dusty file was being accessed for the first time in decades. It was humanity's application file for Council membership, submitted 50 years ago. Most species had only read the diplomatic sections. None had bothered to read the historical data included at the end. If they had, they would have found detailed records of humanity's past. World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. Centuries of warfare, of conflict, of species-wide expertise in violence that no other race in the galaxy possessed. They would have understood that humans did not negotiate with murderers because they had learned, in blood and fire across their own history, what happened when you tried. But the Council had not read those files. They had assumed humans were like them, peaceful, civilized, reasonable. They were about to learn otherwise. The Council meditation gardens were designed to promote peace and reflection. Ambassador Jakara walked among the floating crystal flowers, trying to understand what had just happened. Behind her, 3 other ambassadors followed, equally confused. She cannot be serious, Torvin said. The humans must realize they cannot win a war against the Krell. The Dominion has 600 warships. The Terran Coalition has perhaps 300, and they are smaller vessels. It is not about winning, said Ambassador Yila of the Prathon Collective. Her species had been part of the Council for 2,000 years, longer than most. It is about emotion. Humans feel things very strongly. They are young, only 50 years in the galactic community. They do not yet understand how things work. Jakara said nothing. She remembered meeting Elena Reeves for the first time 5 years ago. The human had been warm, funny, eager to learn about other cultures. They had become friends. But the person who walked out of that council chamber was someone different, someone harder. We must make them understand, Torvin continued. For 800 cycles, the council has maintained peace through negotiation and compromise. This is the civilized way. War is barbaric, primitive, wasteful. We left such things behind when we formed the council. Did we? Jakara asked quietly. What do you mean? When was the last time any of us actually fought a war? Not a small border dispute, but a real war. The others thought about this. None of them could remember. Their history files contained such records from before the Council era, but they were ancient, irrelevant. That is precisely the point, Yila said. We evolved beyond war. We learned that talking is better than fighting. The humans simply need time to learn this lesson as well. But Jakara was not convinced. She had seen something in Elena's eyes that troubled her deeply. It was not rage or panic or fear. It was certainty. The kind of certainty that comes from knowing exactly what you are going to do and accepting all consequences. The emergency council session was called for the next morning. This time a delegation had come from Earth itself. 3 officials in crisp military uniforms entered the chamber, flanked by Ambassador Reeves. The council members straightened in their seats. They had prepared speeches about peace and civilization and the terrible cost of war. Arbiter Melkos spoke first. We are pleased you have reconsidered. The council has been working through the night on a negotiation framework with the Krell. We believe we can reduce their demands to just 1 mining world and substantial reparations. This is a much better outcome than war. The lead human officer stepped forward. He wore more decorations than the others, and his gray hair was cut military short. I am Admiral James Kovach, Commander of Earth's High Command. Thank you for your diplomatic efforts, Arbiter. However, we are not here to reconsider. We are here as a courtesy, to inform you of our actions. He activated a holographic display. The council members leaned forward to see. It showed fleet positions, dozens of human ships all moving in coordinated patterns. As of this moment, 12 Terran battle groups have been deployed to the frontier. 400 warships, including support vessels. 3 additional groups are in final preparation. We have mobilized our entire active fleet. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Arbiter Melkos raised his hand for silence. Admiral, this is madness. You are outnumbered. The Krell will destroy your fleet. Perhaps, Kovach said calmly, but we will hurt them very badly in the process. Why? Hila stood up, her voice desperate. Why throw away so many lives? The mining worlds the Krell want are not even particularly valuable. Is pride worth millions of deaths? Admiral Kovach looked at her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was measured but firm. Ambassador Yila, with respect, this is not about pride. This is not about mining worlds. This is about justice. Justice through violence is not justice, Torvin said. It is revenge. No. Elena spoke up from behind the Admiral. Revenge would be killing innocent Krell civilians in response. That is not what we are doing. We are going after the military forces that attacked Kepler Station and the leadership that ordered it. That is justice. The Council can bring them to justice, Melkos argued. We have tribunals, legal processes. Give us time. Time? Elena's voice hardened. How much time? The Krell murdered 50,000 people 6 days ago. In those 6 days, this Council has done nothing but prepare to reward them. You call that justice? We call it pragmatism, Melkos replied. The practical reality is that the Krell are powerful. Fighting them costs more than negotiating with them. We must think of the greater good. Admiral Kovach pulled up another image on his display. It showed historical records from Earth, translated into galactic standard. The greater good. Yes. We have heard that phrase before on Earth. We have heard it used to justify many things throughout our history. Let me share something with you. The display showed an ancient Earth city devastated, then another, then images of concentration camps, mass graves, genocide. The Council members looked away, disturbed by the graphic content. In our year 1938, Kovach continued, there was a meeting called the Munich Conference. The leaders of several Earth nations met with a dictator named Hitler. He had just invaded a region called Czechoslovakia. He promised that if they let him keep it, he would stop expanding. It was pragmatic to believe him. War would have been costly, so they negotiated. They compromised. They chose the practical path. He paused, letting the words sink in. 1 year later, the same dictator invaded Poland. The war that followed killed over 70 million people. It destroyed half of Europe and parts of Asia. It included industrial-scale genocide, all because world leaders chose pragmatism over justice. The chamber was silent. We learned something from that war and from the others that followed, Kovach said. We learned that you cannot negotiate with certain kinds of evil. When someone murders civilians deliberately, when they target children in hospitals and homes, you do not reward them. You stop them. Not because it is easy, but because it is right. Your species' history is full of war, Yila said. Perhaps this is why you cannot see past it. We have evolved beyond such thinking. Elena stepped forward now, standing beside the Admiral. You have not evolved beyond it. You have just forgotten it. When was the last time the Krell attacked someone? Not the first time. The last time before Kepler Station? No one answered. Shakara checked her data pad. There have been 14 incidents in the past 20 years. Border skirmishes, destroyed ships, occupied outposts. The Council negotiated settlements each time. Settlements that gave the Krell more territory, more resources, more power, Elena said. You did not stop them. You encouraged them. You taught them that violence pays dividends. And now 50,000 people are dead because the Krell believed they could murder civilians and simply negotiate a reward. So what is your solution? Melkos demanded. Destroy the Krell Dominion? Kill their people? Become the same as them? No, Kovac said firmly. Our solution is to dismantle their military, remove their aggressive leadership from power, and help their people build something better. We have done this before on Earth. It works, but it requires being willing to fight, not just talk. A new ambassador stood up, one who had not spoken before. She represented the Karathi Federation, a small but wealthy species. And what if we forbid this? The Council Charter requires approval for military action in neutral space. Without our permission, you would be violating galactic law. Admiral Kovac met her gaze. Then we will be criminals under galactic law. We can live with that. Can you live with trading away justice for convenience? He deactivated the display and turned to leave. The entire human delegation moved toward the doors. Wait, Shakara called out. She walked down from her seat to stand in front of Elena. Are you certain about this? Really certain? War will cost so much. Elena looked at her friend. For a moment, the hardness cracked and Shakara saw the pain underneath. Shakara, they killed 50,000 people, including 300 children. The Krell filmed it and broadcasted it as a warning to others. They are not sorry. They are proud. If we negotiate with them, we tell the galaxy that human lives can be bought and sold. I cannot do that. My government cannot do that. Even if it costs us everything, then I hope you know what you are doing. We do, Elena said softly. We have had a lot of practice. The human delegation left. The council chamber dissolved into chaos. Some species demanded sanctions against humanity. Others argued for understanding. A few said nothing but began quietly reviewing their own defense arrangements. In Krell space, Warlord Kresh received the news with amusement. The humans wanted war? Excellent. He would teach these upstart primates the cost of defying the Dominion. He would make an example of them that the galaxy would never forget. He began planning his next attack. A human colony world called New Terra, 3 million civilians, enough to break their spirit completely. What Kresh did not know was that every communication he sent, every ship he moved, every order he gave, was being monitored by human intelligence. Earth had been preparing for this moment since the first distress call from Kepler Station had come through. The Terran fleet was not rushing into battle. They were setting a trap, and the Krell, confident in their superiority, were about to walk right into it. Warlord Kresh stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Blood Talon, and watched his fleet assemble. 100 warships, all bearing the red markings of the Krell Dominion. It was a beautiful sight, representing power that could crush planets. Warlord, his second-in-command, said, "The human colony of New Terra is 3 days away. Should we send a challenge message first? Allow them to see their doom approaching?" Kresh considered this. In Krell culture, honor demanded that enemies know who defeated them. But these humans had rejected the Dominion's generous offer of negotiation. They deserved no honor, no messages, he decided. We will do to New Terra what we did to Kepler Station. When the humans see their colony burning, they will understand the price of defiance, his officers cheered. This was the Krell way. Strength, dominance, victory. Weakness was not tolerated. Hesitation was death. The galaxy had grown soft under the Council's endless talking. But the Dominion remembered the old ways. 3 days later, Kresh's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Terra system. Sensors immediately painted the tactical display. New Terra orbited the third planet, a blue world similar to Earth. Orbital stations, defense platforms, and ships. Human ships. 30 contacts, the sensor officer reported. Frigate and destroyer class. No capital ships detected. Kresh smiled, showing his sharp teeth. 30 ships against 100. They are either brave or stupid. He opened a fleet-wide channel. All vessels attack formation. Show these primates what real warriors look like. The Krell fleet surged forward. Their ships were massive, each one a fortress of weapons and armor. Krell naval doctrine was simple: close to medium range and overwhelm the enemy with superior firepower. It had worked for centuries, but something felt wrong to Kresh. The human ships were not running. They were not even moving into defensive positions around the planet. They were scattering, breaking into small groups, heading in different directions. "They are fleeing," his second said. "Cowards? No." Kresh studied the display more carefully. "They are spreading out." "Why would they do that?" He got his answer 30 seconds later. The defense platforms around New Terra suddenly came online, not with weapons but with powerful sensor arrays. They painted every Krell ship with targeting data. Simultaneously, the space around Kresh's fleet erupted with energy signatures. Ships were emerging from faster-than-light travel. Dozens of them. Human ships that had been waiting hidden, positioned perfectly. "Ambush," someone shouted. Kresh's fleet was now surrounded by 60 human warships. They had walked into a trap. Aboard the human destroyer Vigilant, Commander Sarah Chen watched the tactical display with cold focus. Her ship was one of 12 vessels assigned to the enemy flagship. She opened a fleet-wide channel. "All vessels execute Alpha Strike pattern. Target acquisition locked. Fire on my mark." She paused, watching the numbers align. Mark. The human fleet did not fire all their weapons at once like the Krell expected. Instead, each ship launched a calculated spread of missiles, timed and positioned for maximum coverage. The missiles were not large, not particularly powerful individually, but there were hundreds of them, and they moved fast, much faster than Krell point defense systems could track. The first wave hit the Krell fleet like a swarm of hornets. Shields flickered and failed under the coordinated assault. Armor plating cracked. 3 Krell cruisers exploded before they could even return fire. "Break formation," Kresh ordered. "All ships target the nearest enemy and destroy them." But the humans were not where the Krell expected them to be. As soon as they had fired, the human ships accelerated away using speed and maneuverability that Krell vessels could not match. They did not stay to fight honorably. They hit and ran, regrouped, and hit again from a different angle. Lieutenant Jatara of the Velusian Defense Force watched from the observation deck of the human command carrier Washington. She had been assigned as an observer, part of a council program to monitor the conflict. She had expected to witness a human defeat, to document the moment when Earth learned the cost of rejecting diplomacy. Instead, she was watching something that made her deeply uncomfortable. "Contact the Krell flagship," Admiral Kovacs ordered from the command center. Jatara listened as a communication channel opened. Kovacs' voice was calm, almost gentle. "Krell vessels, this is Admiral Kovacs of the Terran Coalition. You are surrounded and outgunned. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. You will be treated according to the laws of war. You have 30 seconds to comply." On the view screen, the Krell flagship responded by firing everything it had at the nearest human destroyer. The destroyer's shields held barely. It returned fire with precision strikes at the flagship's weapon systems, disabling them one by one. "Second warning," Kovacs said. "Surrender now or we will be forced to destroy you." Jatara found her voice. "Admiral, they will not surrender. The Krell culture does not allow it. They consider surrender worse than death." Kovacs looked at her with tired eyes. "I know, Lieutenant, but we have to try." The 30 seconds passed. The Krell did not surrender. They continued fighting with everything they had, even as their ships died around them. "All vessels," Kovacs said heavily. "Disable priority targets. Destroy those who refuse to stand down." The battle that followed was brutal and efficient. Human ships worked in coordinated teams using tactics Jatara had never seen. They would draw Krell fire, then scatter, while other human vessels struck from unexpected angles. They targeted engines, weapons, life support, dismantling Krell ships piece by piece. When a Krell vessel was disabled, human boarding teams went in. Jatara watched through drone footage as human Marines in combat armor cleared the damaged ships, securing Krell crew members who were too injured to fight. The humans did not execute them. They provided medical care even to enemy combatants. But when Krell vessels continued fighting, the humans showed no mercy. Precision strikes eliminated them with cold efficiency. There was no honor in it, no glory, just ruthless professional violence. 6 hours into the engagement, 70 Krell ships had been destroyed. 20 had been disabled and boarded. The remaining 10 vessels, battered and burning, finally began to disengage. "Let them go," Kovac ordered. "Track them, but do not pursue." Jatara could not stay silent any longer. "Admiral, you have won. The Krell are retreating. But the cost. 18 of your ships were destroyed. Over 3,000 of your people are dead. Was this worth it?" Kovac turned to face her fully. His uniform was pressed and clean, but his face showed the weight of every death. "Lieutenant, every single person we lost today knew what they signed up for. They died defending 3 million civilians on New Terra. They died ensuring the Krell cannot do to this colony what they did to Kepler Station. Yes, it was worth it. I hate that it had to happen, but yes. But this is not how civilized species fight," Jatara protested. "Your tactics, your weapons, the way you coordinate. It is brutal, efficient, like a machine designed for killing." "It is," Kovac agreed. "War is brutal, Lieutenant. We do not pretend otherwise. We do not dress it up in honor codes or ritual combat. We do what is necessary to win, because losing means more dead civilians." He pulled up a display showing Earth's military history. Jatara saw hundreds of conflicts spanning thousands of years. "My species has been at war with itself and others for most of our recorded history. We have fought with sticks and stones, with swords and spears, with guns and bombs, with nuclear weapons that could destroy our entire world. We have killed millions of our own kind learning how to be efficient at violence. That is horrifying," Jatara whispered. "Yes," Kovac said. "It is. We do not celebrate it. We do not take pride in being good at war. But we learned something important through all that horror. We learned when fighting is necessary and when it is not. We learned the difference between aggression and defense. And we learned that sometimes the only way to stop evil is with force." Jatara thought about the Krell, about their centuries of raiding and attacking weaker species. The Council had always negotiated, always compromised, because fighting was barbaric, uncivilized, wrong. But how many people had died because the Council chose talking over action? How many stations like Kepler had burned while diplomats debated?
"What will you do now?"
she asked. Kovac looked at the tactical display, where the surviving Krell ships were fleeing back to their home territory. "We will track them. We will prepare, because Warlord Kresh will not stop. He cannot afford to look weak to his own people. He will come at us again, and when he does, we will be ready. You mean to destroy the entire Krell Dominion. We mean to remove the threat they pose to innocent lives," Kovac corrected. "Their military, their aggressive leadership, yes. But the Krell people themselves? We will help them build something better when this is over. We have done it before on Earth. After World War II, we helped rebuild the nations we defeated. They became allies, friends. It is possible to win a war and still choose mercy for those who lose." Jatara was not sure she believed that, but as she watched the human crew working around her, providing medical care to wounded Krell prisoners, treating them with dignity despite what they had done, she began to wonder. Maybe the humans were not the barbarians here. Maybe they had simply remembered something the galaxy had forgotten. That peace without the will to defend it was just temporary. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so divided. Species that had worked together for centuries now stood on opposite sides of a growing divide. At the center of it all was the human question. "This is unacceptable." Ambassador Torvin slammed his appendage on his podium. The humans ambushed a Krell fleet in neutral space. They destroyed 70 warships. "This is not defense, it is aggression!" Ambassador Elena Reeves stood calmly at the human podium. She had not slept in 4 days, but her voice remained steady. "Ambassador Torvin, the Krell fleet was on its way to attack New Terra, a civilian colony with 3 million inhabitants. Our intelligence confirmed their intentions. We acted to defend our citizens. Intelligence that you have not shared with this council," Arbiter Melkos said. "How can we trust your claims when you act unilaterally?" Elena activated a holographic display. Encrypted Krell communications appeared, translated into Galactic Standard. Message after message showed Warlord Kresh's orders to destroy New Terra, to kill as many humans as possible, to break Earth's will to resist. This intelligence was gathered over 2 weeks, Elena explained. We monitored every Krell military transmission. We knew they were coming. We chose to stop them before they could kill more innocents. Here is the full data package. You are welcome to review it. The council fell silent as ambassadors examined the evidence. The communications were genuine. The Krell had indeed planned another massacre. Ambassador Jakara stood, her forearms gesturing for attention. The humans saved 3 million lives on New Terra. The Krell came to murder civilians and Earth stopped them. How is this not exactly what we should have done ourselves? Because it is not our way, Yila insisted. We negotiate. We find peaceful solutions. Violence only breeds more violence. Then where was the peaceful solution for the 50,000 dead at Kepler Station? Riccara demanded. We negotiated. We drafted compromises, and while we talked, the Krell planned their next attack. How many more civilians must die before we admit our way is not working? This is insanity, a new voice spoke up. Ambassador Kolrath of the Drexian Empire stood. His species was known for their militaristic past, though they had embraced council peace centuries ago. The Velusians suggest we support human aggression? Have you forgotten the purpose of this council? We exist to prevent war, not encourage it. We exist to protect the innocent, Zakara countered. Or have you forgotten that part? The chamber erupted in arguments. Species shouted across the floor. Alliances that had stood for generations began to fracture. And through it all, Elena stood silently watching. Finally, Arbiter Melkos called for order. Enough, the council will vote. 2 resolutions. First, do we condemn the Terran coalition for aggressive military action? Second, do we demand immediate ceasefire and return to diplomatic negotiations with the Krell Dominion? The vote was called. 23 species voted to condemn humanity. 20 voted against condemnation. 4 abstained. The council was nearly split down the middle. The second vote was even closer. 25 for demanding ceasefire. 22 against. The motion passed by the narrowest margin in council history. Ambassador Reeves, Arbiter Melkos announced, the Galactic Council officially demands that the Terran Coalition cease all military operations and return to diplomatic channels. Failure to comply will result in sanctions and possible expulsion from the Council. Elena looked around the chamber at the faces watching her, some hostile, some sympathetic, some just afraid. She took a deep breath. The Terran Coalition rejects this demand. Gasps rippled through the chamber. No species had ever directly rejected a council mandate. You understand what this means? Melkos asked quietly. Trade sanctions, diplomatic isolation, you will be cast out. I understand perfectly, Elena replied. And I also understand that this council has lost its moral authority. You had a choice. Stand against mass murder or negotiate with murderers for convenience. You chose convenience. Earth chooses justice. She walked out for the second time. But this time she was not alone. Jakara followed her along with 2 other Velusian ambassadors. Then Ambassador Shen of the Narration Alliance stood and left. Then 3 more species. By the time the session ended, 11 species had walked out in protest. The council was fracturing. In the halls outside, Jakara caught up with Elena. That was brave. Or insane, I'm not sure which. Maybe both, Elena admitted. She looked at her friend. Jakara, you did not have to follow us. Your people will face consequences. My people have a saying, Jakara replied. When you see someone drowning, you do not debate whether the water is too cold. You jump in. The galaxy is drowning in complacency, Elena. Someone needs to jump in. Elena smiled for the first time in weeks. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. The Krell will not stop. Kresh has gathered his full armada, 500 warships. He is coming for Earth itself. We know. Our intelligence confirmed it 3 days ago. Jakara stared at her. And you are not afraid? Terrified, Elena said honestly. But fear is not a reason to surrender justice. In the Velusian home system, the planetary government held an emergency session. Prime Minister Velshara addressed her council. The humans stand alone against the Krell. The council has abandoned them. What do? We follow the council mandate, one councillor argued. We must maintain diplomatic relations. Sanctions will hurt our economy. Our economy, Velshara repeated. 50,000 civilians died at Kepler Station. Millions more would have died at New Terra. And we worry about our economy? Prime Minister, we cannot fight the Krell. We are not warriors. Then we find another way to help. Velshara made her decision. Open a secure channel to Terran High Command. Offer them whatever intelligence support we can provide. Sensor data, fleet tracking, anything they need. And quietly, very quietly, let me know which of our defense contractors would be willing to sell weapons to Earth without council approval. Similar conversations were happening across 3 other systems. Species that had voted against condemning humanity, were now deciding how far they would go to support Earth. Some offered intelligence, others opened secret supply channels. A few even began moving their own defense fleets to defensive positions, preparing for the possibility that the Krell might turn on them next. In Krell space, Warlord Kresh stood before his assembled fleet commanders. The holographic display showed 460 warships, the largest military force assembled in centuries. Only 40 vessels remained behind to guard their home territory. Warriors of the Dominion, Kresh's voice boomed. The humans think they can defy us. They think their tricks at New Terra make them strong. We will show them the truth. We will burn their homeworld. We will scatter their fleet. We will teach the galaxy that the Krell Dominion does not negotiate with inferiors. We conquer them. His commanders roared approval, but Kresh saw something in their eyes that troubled him. Hesitation. Doubt. The humans had killed too many of their brothers at New Terra. The victory had seemed so certain, and yet it had turned to disaster. Kresh needed to restore their confidence. I know some of you have concerns. You saw what happened at New Terra, but that was a small engagement. This time we bring our full might. This time there will be no tricks, no ambushes. We will meet their fleet head-on and crush them with superior numbers. Warlord, one brave commander asked. The humans fight differently than anyone we have faced. They do not follow honor. They do not fight fair. What if they have more surprises? Kresh walked up to that commander and stared him down. Then we adapt. Or are you saying the Dominion cannot defeat a species that has been in space for less than 2 centuries? The commander lowered his gaze. No, Warlord. Good, we leave in 2 days. And when we return, it will be with human surrender or human extinction. Either is acceptable. The fleet began its preparations. But in the lower decks, away from officers and monitoring systems, Krell soldiers talked quietly among themselves. Many had seen the battle footage from New Terra. They had watched human ships move with precision and coordination that Krell vessels could not match. They had seen how the humans used every advantage, showed no mercy in battle but treated prisoners with unexpected dignity. Some wondered if they were being led to their deaths, but none spoke these thoughts aloud. To question the warlord meant execution. On Earth, Admiral Kovac stood in the command center, watching the same intelligence displays that showed Krell fleet movements. General Maria Santos stood beside him along with a dozen other senior officers. 460 ships, Santos said. They are throwing everything at us. Not everything, Kovac corrected. They are leaving 40 ships to guard their home system. Kresh is arrogant. He thinks numbers alone will win. They might be right, Admiral. Even with our tactics, we are outnumbered more than 3 to 1. On paper, yes. Kovac pulled up a different display. It showed the Sol system, Earth's home. Dozens of defensive platforms, hidden weapons arrays, ships positioned throughout the system in carefully planned locations. But they are coming to us, to our home. And we have had 2 weeks to prepare. He looked at his command staff. Kresh thinks this will be a straightforward battle. The Krell Armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. 460 warships arranged in the traditional Dominion battle formation. Warlord Kresh stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled. Before him lay Earth, the blue-green world that dared to defy him. Scan for their fleet, he ordered. His sensor officer worked the controls, then looked up with confusion. Warlord, I am detecting human ships, but they are scattered throughout the system. No main battle formation. They are everywhere and nowhere. Kresh studied the tactical display. The human ships were not grouped together as they should be. Some orbited Earth, others floated near the outer planets. A few were stationed by the asteroid belt. It made no tactical sense. They are disorganized, his second-in-command said. Panicking. This will be easier than expected, but something nagged at Kresh. The humans at New Terra had not panicked. They had set a trap. Could this be another one? Proceed carefully, he ordered. Battle formation. All ships maintain spacing. Advance toward Earth. The Krell fleet moved forward like a massive wave of steel and weapons. They expected the human ships to regroup, to meet them in traditional battle formation. Instead, the human vessels began moving in, seemingly random patterns. Then Earth's defensive platforms came. Online, what the Krell thought were civilian communication satellites suddenly revealed themselves as weapon arrays, hundreds of them, positioned in high orbit around Earth and throughout the inner system. They began firing not at the main Krell fleet but at specific targeting points, painting every Krell ship with sensor locks. Evasive action, Kresh shouted. But before his ships could react, the trap sprung. The human ships that had been scattered throughout the system suddenly accelerated. They had not been disorganized. They had been positioned. Every human vessel moved with perfect coordination, converging on the Krell fleet from multiple angles simultaneously. And they were not alone. From behind the moon, 50 additional human warships appeared. From the asteroid belt, automated weapons platforms that had been hiding among the rocks came online. From Earth's upper atmosphere, atmospheric defense ships rose like a swarm. The Krell had sailed into a perfectly designed kill zone. Admiral Kovacs watched the tactical display from the bridge of the Washington. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. 2 years of preparation, thousands of simulations, and now it was real. All vessels execute Operation Fortress. Authorization Kovacs Alpha 7. Across the human fleet, commanders acknowledged the order. The first wave hit the Krell armada like a hammer. Unlike at New Terra, the humans did not try to disable Krell ships. There was no time for mercy, not against these numbers. Every weapon was calibrated for maximum lethality. Missiles swarmed. Railguns fired. Energy weapons cut through Krell shields like they were paper. Warlord Kresh watched in horror as his formation began to collapse. 15 ships destroyed in the first minute. Then 20 more. The humans were hitting them from every direction at once, and his fleet could not coordinate their defense. Return fire. All vessels, target the nearest enemy. The Krell fought back with everything they had. Human ships began dying too. The destroyer Valor took a direct hit to its engines and exploded. The cruiser Defiant lost its shields and was torn apart by Krell weapons. 3 human frigates disappeared in a single massive explosion, but for every human ship that died, 5 Krell vessels fell. Lieutenant Jatara stood in the observation deck, gripping the railing as the Washington shuddered from impacts. Around her, human officers worked with mechanical precision, calling out targets, coordinating strikes, adjusting strategies in real time. She watched as a young human lieutenant at the tactical station calmly reported that her sister's ship had just been destroyed. The woman's voice broke for just a moment, then steadied. She continued working. That was what terrified Jatara most. Not the weapons or the tactics, but the human ability to keep fighting even while their hearts were breaking. Warlord, we have lost over 100 ships, the sensor officer reported. Recommend we withdraw and regroup. Kresh's claws dug into his command chair. Retreat was unthinkable. The Dominion did not flee from battle. But continuing forward meant losing everything. His pride made the decision for him. All ships full assault. Break through their lines and target Earth itself. If we cannot defeat their fleet, we will force them to watch their homeworld burn. The Krell fleet surged forward in a desperate push. Some ships made it through the human formations, racing toward Earth. For a moment, it seemed like they might succeed. Then Earth's final defense activated. What appeared to be a ring of civilian orbital habitats suddenly unfolded, revealing themselves as massive weapons platforms. Each one carried firepower equivalent to a capital ship. They had been hidden in plain sight for years, built in secret after humanity joined the galactic community. Just in case. The Krell ships that had broken through the human lines flew directly into this firing line. None survived. The battle raged for 18 hours, the longest 18 hours of Jatara's life. She watched ships die on both sides, watched humans fight with a ferocity and skill that no galactic species possessed. And slowly, inevitably, the Krell armada was destroyed. When it was over, 300 Krell warships were gone. 90 had surrendered when their weapons failed and their ships were crippled. The remaining 70 had managed to break away and flee, badly damaged. The human fleet had lost 147 ships. Over 10,000 human personnel were dead. It was the most brutal battle in galactic history. And Earth had won. Warlord Kresh's flagship was crippled but intact. His weapons were offline. His engines dead. His shields gone. Human ships surrounded him. Weapons locked on. Admiral Kovacs' face appeared on the main view screen. The human looked exhausted, his uniform stained, but his voice was steady. Warlord Kresh, your fleet is defeated. Your ship is disabled. I am offering you one final chance to surrender. You and your crew will be treated according to the laws of war. You will face trial for the massacre at Kepler Station. This is your only chance. Kresh looked around his ruined bridge. Half his crew was dead or injured. The other half watched him, waiting for his orders. He had led them to this. His pride, his arrogance, his certainty that the humans were weak. "You think you have won?" Kresh said. "You think killing my warriors makes you victorious. But you have only proven that you are as savage as your primitive history suggests." "No," Kovacs replied. "We proved that we will defend the innocent, no matter the cost. Last chance, warlord. Surrender or die." Kresh reached for the self-destruct control. He would not give these primates the satisfaction of capturing him. His claw touched the button. Then his second-in-command struck him from behind. The warlord collapsed, unconscious. The second-in-command looked at the view screen, at Admiral Kovacs' surprised face. "I am Commander Dresh. I am assuming command of this vessel. We surrender." Around the bridge, the surviving Krell crew members lowered their weapons. They were tired. They were beaten, and they no longer believed their warlord's promises of glory. "Thank you, Commander Dresh," Kovacs said quietly. "Stand by for boarding. Your wounded will receive medical attention." The channel closed. Dresh looked down at the unconscious warlord, then at his crew. "We followed him because we believed the Dominion was strong, that our way was right. We were wrong. Now we face the consequences." Human boarding teams came through carefully, weapons ready but not firing. They secured the bridge, separated the Krell crew from their weapons, and began treating the injured. A human medic knelt beside a wounded Krell soldier and began working, even though that same soldier had been trying to kill humans just hours before. Commander Dresh watched this and understood. The humans had not been lying. They really did follow laws of war. They really did show mercy to defeated enemies. It made their victory somehow worse. The Krell had been beaten by species that was both more deadly and more compassionate than them. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy watched in shock as the aftermath unfolded. The humans did not occupy Krell space. They did not demand tribute or territory. Instead, they established a peacekeeping force, working with Velusian and Narration allies. Warlord Kresh and 47 other Krell commanders were brought to trial. Not a human trial, but an international tribunal with judges from multiple species, including 3 Krell civilians. The proceedings were broadcast across the galaxy. The evidence was overwhelming. The attack on Kepler Station, the planned massacre at New Terra, decades of similar crimes. The tribunal found them guilty and sentenced them to life imprisonment. But the humans did something unexpected. They also brought charges against several Krell military leaders who had committed war crimes during the Battle of Sol, executing prisoners or targeting civilian areas. Justice applied to everyone, including humans. 3 human officers were convicted of excessive force and received punishment. The galaxy watched in amazement as Earth held its own people accountable. Ambassador Elena Reeves stood before the reformed Galactic Council 6 months later. The chamber looked different now. Several new species had joined. Others had left. The council had been forced to reevaluate everything it believed about peace and justice. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.